So, you want to know how much the top software salespeople earn all around the world. So in this video, what I'm going to do is jump onto my laptop and actually walk you through every single software sales role, walk you through the average earnings and also the earnings for the top performers. Not only that, I'll also take some time to walk you through some of the sales leadership roles. And if you stay right the way to the end, I'm even going to show you what the C-suite earns, so the very top earners in these software sales companies. So you do not want to miss this. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into my laptop now. So here we are on the laptop now, and you'll notice we're on a website called repview.com. To be clear, I have zero affiliation with RepView. They are a completely neutral, independent company that collect data on software companies. They collect data such as pay salaries, increases, recent news, and everything in between. And so we're going to use this website as a starting point for some of the key roles and the salaries that you can expect. So as you'll see on this top panel here, as mentioned, they have information about companies if you want to check their sizes, recent movements, the way that they rate them. They've recently even got a job board so you can see different roles and available opportunities. But we're really focused for this video on salaries. And so that's where we're going to spend our time. So I've just clicked on the salary tab right here, and you'll notice there is a list of all of these software sales roles that are readily available on the market. So what I'm going to do is walk through some of the key roles. We'll have a look at some of the salaries and what you can come to expect depending on the level that you're at within your particular career transition. So to kick us off, I'm going to start with the most junior software sales role, which is this one here. It's called an SDR, or a sales development representative. Now, to be clear, this website, as you can see, the salaries are based on USD, United States dollar. But really they are akin to the same for Great British Pound or many other currencies. These are pretty much industry standard. So you could change the dollar to a pound and you're generally looking at around the same about salary as you would expect in the UK as you would in the US as well. So an SDR is the most junior role in software sales. Typically an SDR spends most of their time trying to generate net new revenue opportunities for more senior salespeople. So they might spend their time sending emails, being on social media, making phone calls, and really their job is to book qualified meetings. And once they book a qualified meeting, they hand it off to a more senior salesperson who will then take that first meeting, what we would call a discovery meeting, to learn more about a customer and then potentially move that particular prospect through a sales cycle. So you can see in the most junior role in software sales, someone would expect about a 55K base salary, about 80,000 on-target earnings. And when we say on-target earnings, what we mean is your basic salary, which is what you're guaranteed to get every month for just turning up and doing your job. The delta between your base salary and your on-target earnings means as long as you hit your target, so as long as you do 100% of your target, this is the amount that you would earn. And then top performer earning potential means that if you're doing north of 100%, this is what you would expect to earn. And you can see that over 50% of SDRs at the moment are achieving their target, which means north of 50% are earning at least 80,000 and top performers are doing 130,000. Now, when you think about being in your very first role in software sales, this is pretty incredible, right? This is something pretty special. Being in your first ever role, whether you're a fresh graduate or whether you're transitioning from another sales role into software sales, to have the opportunity to earn around the 130K mark if you're a top performer is pretty incredible. It's pretty awesome. So this just gives you an idea for the pace and the potential within this particular industry and within this particular segment. So let's dive out now and look at the next role up, which is what we would call the SMB Account Executive. So SMB stands for Small to Medium Business Account Executive. So typically once someone gets promoted from that SDR role, they would move into an SMB Account Executive role, which is really the most junior sales role available. So if someone was transitioning, maybe you've had experience in sales in a slightly different role, now you've just come into software sales, you may have the opportunity to transition straight into an SMB account exec role. So as we can see here, the average basic salary about the 65,000 mark, on target earnings of 130,000, and then top performers doing 271,000 every single year. So pretty incredible level of income when you think about it, especially if you're transitioning from another industry or another field, to have the opportunity to get into multi-six figures that quickly, either from your first promotion or potentially straight in if you've come from another industry. Pretty awesome, right? We then look at the average percentage that are hitting quota just under that 50% mark. So it means just under 50% are earning at least 130,000. Top performers doing almost 300,000. And then that guaranteed income every single year of 65K. And once again, whether you're in the UK or the US, generally these salaries are about average for what you would expect. So if we now zoom out and now let's look at the next roll up, which would be what we would call a mid-market account executive. So mid-market generally means you're selling to average size kind of companies that aren't SMB, so they're not tiny, smaller businesses, but you're tending to now sell to slightly larger companies that may have more like 300 to 500 employees, maybe up to 1,000, depending on the company that you're working in. Different companies define the term mid-market in various ways. So depending on the company you work for, they'll have a slightly different definition of what mid-market means for them. But again, we can see here that the average basic salary being 85,000, on target earnings of 160,000, and top performers doing a huge 387,000. And now it's around 40% that are hitting quota here. So about 40% doing at least 160K, but top performers doing almost 400K. And so if you know that you work hard, you've got desire, drive, a willingness to really go for it, there's absolutely no reason you can't be that person earning almost 400K or more. And typically when you think about a mid-market account executive, this is a role with someone typically around 3 years experience within SaaS. If someone's transitioning from outside of software and coming in, if you've got a fair amount of experience in another sales role, there is definitely an opportunity to get a mid-market account exec role, depending on the size of the company. If you think of a younger, slightly smaller company, they tend to value even more experience from people who are coming from other industries because it helps them to grow. If they've got someone who's working for 5 or 10 years in a different industry and they're a young company, they'll value that experience more. Whereas if you're looking at some of the bigger software sales companies, you'd have a harder time coming from out of industry in. But there's absolutely an opportunity to get a mid-market role like this, and earnings of that 400K are most definitely possible. You need to be that person who's got the will, the desire, and willingness to go for it. But all of these numbers I've personally seen happen, I've experienced myself, and so no reason you can't go out there and make it happen too. So if we go back out here now, we'll look at some of the slightly more senior roles. So the enterprise account executive role is now one of the more senior roles within software sales. And so this is typically someone who's going to be selling to larger organizations. They're going to be selling to bigger businesses, maybe banks, for example, and some of the bigger household names in retail that you would go out and expect. And so if you now look at the average base salary, you're looking at 130,000 per year. That would be guaranteed just for showing up. Your on-target earnings, so your base salary plus your commission of 250,000. The top performer earning potential, now 618,000. I mean, just pause for a moment, 618,000. Bear in mind, RepView, completely neutral website. They just collect the data. But this shows why a career in software sales is just an absolute must. It's an absolute must. The earning potential is just through and through the roof. 618K for top performers and about 35% managing to attain quota. So you can naturally see as you get into the more senior roles, it can become slightly more challenging to hit your quota, but that's to be expected because your earnings go up. And at this level, you're guaranteed just for turning up to earn your 130K, As long as you hit your target, you're doing 250K. Even if you're under target, you're doing between 130K and 250K. And then if you're doing over 100%, you're earning anywhere from 250K to 618K. And the incredible thing about this is it excludes stock options. And so if you've been smart and you've negotiated some stock within your package, this doesn't even include that. So you can earn your 618K plus the stock and the equity that you may own in the company. And when you combine the two, you can see how you have a path to 7-figure earnings or even more. And so enterprise account execs tend to focus on winning new business. So they're typically focused on winning net new logos within companies. So they're not generally looking after existing companies and trying to grow that revenue. They're typically working just as pure play hunters. So going out there, winning new logos, and in essence, bringing completely new business to their companies. So now let's zoom out again and look at a couple of other roles here. So one of the other roles is the strategic account executive role. Now, this role is the very similar level to an enterprise account executive. The main difference is that a strategic account executive tends to look after existing customers, and their job is to grow the revenue of those existing customers. So a strategic account exec may have 5 existing customers, for example. They might be spending $100,000 per month right now. And that strategic account executive's job is to get them from spending $100,000 per month to $1 million per month. And that's really their job. And every time they grow that revenue and that book of business, they earn more commission in the process. So let's take a look now at the average earnings for a strategic account executive. As you can see, $140,000 as a basic salary, $280,000 average on-target earnings. So as long as they do 100%, $280K. And then top performers bringing home almost $700,000, so $686,000 every single year for top performers. And it's around 40% here that are hitting their quota, so hitting that 280K at least. Again, this excludes stock, so almost 700K for top performers. And you'll tend to find strategic account execs, people with at least 5 to 8 years experience within software sales. That's typically when you get into this kind of level, but it shows the path ahead. It shows the possibilities. And find me another job that within 5 to 8 years from a standing start, you could even have a path to earning this kind of money. Good luck trying to find another job that can make that happen. So you can see the possibilities here within the strategic account executive role. Now, I want to just give you a couple of other call outs here. One of them being the account manager role. This is a role that doesn't always get spoken about a ton, but this is a fairly junior role where, again, it's basically a more junior version of the strategic account executive role. So account managers tend to look after a pool of customers. They'll have a select pool of customers, and their job is, again, to grow the revenue of those existing customers. So they might be spending $10 a month or $100 or $1,000 a month, and their job is to just grow that book of business. And by doing that, they then earn their commission. So you can see the average earnings here of 95K on a basic, 165K as long as they hit their target, and top performers just a fraction shy of 400,000 per year, and almost 50% of people doing at least their on-target earnings. So anywhere from that 165 up to that 400K. Now, the account management role is a role that often goes under the radar, but it's a really interesting role, especially if you're someone that doesn't want the chase of the constant new business, constantly hunting new logos. Maybe you actually want to work with existing customers that are warmer and grow that book of business. And there's a great career path to go from being an account manager into that strategic account executive role. And so a really nice path to very significant earnings if you prefer working with existing customers instead of hunting new business roles. Typically, the way you can know the difference between new business roles and existing customers is the difference between being an account manager or a strategic account exec versus the job titles like account executive, SMB account executive, mid-market, enterprise. These are all new business roles. So that's typically how you'll know and understand the difference. Now, let's talk about management roles. That's something that we haven't touched yet. So here we can look at an average sales manager. And something that we want to be specific about here when we say sales manager, these are what we call first-line sales managers. So this is the first promotion that someone would get from being, say, an account executive or an enterprise account executive to their first management role. So it's what we call first line. So it's when you're actually looking after existing salespeople. You're not a manager of managers, you're a manager of salespeople when we say that you're a first line leader. Sometimes a job title is sales manager, sometimes it's sales director, just depends on the company. But in this example, it's sales manager. So we can see that the average earnings here, 135K on a basic salary, 250K on target earnings, and top performing managers just shy of 500K per year. And it's over 50% on average that are achieving this number. So pretty special, really good numbers. You can see this data has all been updated very recently. This is in US, so 24, so today, when I'm recording this video, that this was updated. So very recent data, very accurate, very real, and it's all come from the field. And so this is what an average sales manager could look at. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about when you get promoted from a sales manager or a sales director into what we call a second line leadership role? And second line is when you are a manager of managers or you're a leader of sales directors. So you're not directly looking after the field sales team, you're now looking after the leaders that look after the field sales team. So the typical job title for a second line leader is what we call a VP of sales, a vice president of sales. And RepView doesn't capture the data for this, so I've switched over to a website called comparably.com. Again, I have no affiliation, completely net neutral site, and they have some data on average earnings for a VP of sales. So as we go back onto the laptop here, we can see that the average in the US is just a fraction shy of 300K. Having been a VP of sales myself based in the UK for a US based company, I can vouch for the fact that this is about what you would also expect in the UK as well. You can see the basic salary 180K, the bonus being about 120K. Again, this excludes stock. And so you're looking at 300K just alone in salary. Stock packages at leadership roles are much more significant than when you're a salesperson. And so you're looking typically at multi six figures worth of stock options. So that's ownership in the company, which you can eventually sell if the company either goes through an IPO, which means they go from private to being a public company, or they may get acquired. And in both those scenarios, you can then typically realize that stock for actual cash. And so that can then bolster on your salary. So maybe you're earning 300K salary wise as a VP, but then with your stock, you may be looking at 500, 600, 700K once you bundle the two of those together. So that gives you an idea of what a leadership role at second line can look like within software sales. And again, leadership roles, getting into them, it really depends, right? First line leadership, you could get in anywhere between 3 to 5 years. And then VP, typically 5 years in the game plus. Some people do it sooner, really depends on the company, how effective you are, your results, and the type of sponsorship that you have within your existing organization. And if as we're going through all of this, any of this you'd like support with or you'd like to go through in a bit more detail, I'll leave a link in the description box below where you can schedule some time with myself and a member of my team to talk about our program, The Transition, where we move existing salespeople into a multi-six-figure career in software sales. We can help you understand what kind of level you can come in at, what type of income you can expect, and actually the types of companies where you can earn this type of money. So if you want support and help with any of that, check the link in the description box below and we'll walk you through exactly what it would take. Now back to the laptop. I want to promise you I'd give you a bit of a bonus point here, something that you'll find really interesting. So I actually used to work for this company called Twilio. They're one of the largest cloud communication companies on the planet. Now, Twilio are what we call a public company. So several years ago, they went from being privately owned to what we call floating on the stock exchange, which means they're public and they offer shares out to the public markets, which mean that once you become public, you have more obligations to the open market. You have to disclose your financials. You have to disclose the earnings of your execs. There's a lot more obligations you have. And that gives us a bit of a bonus opportunity to look at what your earnings can be if you get into the C-suite. So this is if you become a chief executive officer or a chief revenue officer, which is the most senior role you can get being in software sales. So we're going to be a little bit cheeky, go and have a look at the Twilio's last annual report and find out what their president of revenue actually earned in recent years to give you an idea of what you could earn as well. So as you can see, I've gone onto their website, onto their financials, clicked into their annual report, and I've then run a search on this lady here, who is one of their executive officers and is their president of revenue. And so you can see this is a very lengthy annual report. Now, if I run a search on this name here, what it does is it takes me down to earnings based on 2022 in this particular example of their executive team. So if we look at the president of revenue here, in the year 2022, basic salary was $665,000. The stock options that she was awarded was over 25 million in stock awards. There's even more option awards that were given at that time, another 8 million for total compensation in 2022 of over $34 million. Now, let's put this in perspective, right? Let's actually just dive onto her LinkedIn profile. You can see here, president at Twilio. You can see having been at the company for 8 years, right? And so back to the public statement, having been at this company for 8 years, gone through a couple of different roles, would have started like all of us would have started, right? In more junior roles, but worked her way up through all of the ranks, second line leadership and beyond. Now earning over 34 million or being awarded a total compensation package worth over $34 million. So when we talk about why SaaS, why software companies are absolutely the place to be, you can see why now. The ability to completely transform your life, become a multi-millionaire, and really completely live life on your own terms. We only have to look at some of the other execs here, look at some of the rest of the packages, 49 million, 29 million, 26 million, right? Software companies are just complete game changers because they grow the fastest, they move with the most amount of pace. And if you decide to stick with a company for an extended amount of time, as you can now see, the ability to become a multi-millionaire is absolutely there for you. And, that's something that is really a decision about if you want to stay in a company, build a career, build great brand equity. These opportunities are there for you as they would be for anyone else. And so this really covers a lot of the key roles within a software sales opportunity, right the way from the most junior to the most senior. You can see the earning potential throughout. If you found this helpful and you'd like to get a bit more detail on any of this, again, check the link in the description box below. Schedule a call with myself and my team. Happy to talk you through my personal experiences, some of the ones that I've seen and observed from some of the examples that I've seen. And also when I was a vice president of sales, happy to walk you through the type of income that we would pay our team so that you can set yourself up for long-term sustainable success as well. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'll leave some options of other videos for you to check out on screen right now. Be sure to check them out. There's tons more that we're uploading every single week. And if you haven't already, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out on a next video in the future. I'll see you on the next one.